Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. So today's video is going to be some new fragrances and my quick thoughts on them. So it's not really necessarily a review, but it's also not first impressions. This is more like, are they full bottle worthy? But since my collection has grown to a point where I just don't want new bottles entering my collection, I'm also trying to reduce my collection. I don't want to call it that. So these are more my thoughts. If I think some of these are redundant, just sharing with you how I feel about these new releases, because if you're like me, I think we've all hit a point where we're smelling a lot of the same. And none of these are dupes, they just fall in a similar family, and maybe you don't want 3 or 4 of the same type of fragrance. So hopefully this video will help with that. So we have 10 fragrances to go over, so let's go ahead and get into the video. Okay, so we're gonna go from my least favorite, the ones that I probably won't finish the travels of, they're just not for me, to then some of the ones that I like a little bit more. So first up is going to be Khloe Kardashian's XO Khloe, with top notes of rose petals, lavender and sage, middle notes of praline, peach and orange blossom, and base notes of musk, tonka bean, woody notes, and moss. This to me is going to be your kind of clean detergent floral scent. But on my skin and to my nose, this smells like cleaner. When I think of lavender scented Comet, but after you've cleaned, that's what this smells like to me. So not when you're using Comet, because that's a very kind of strong, sharp cleaning scent, but maybe you've walked into someone's house and they just got done cleaning with specifically Comet, like a lavender scented Comet. That's what this smells like to me. So this was an instant scrubber. I tried it 2 times, both times scrubbed it off. This scent is not for me. Again, that is Khloe XO. Next we have Ariana Grande's REM Cherry Eclipse, with top notes of black cherry, honeysuckle, middle notes of marshmallow and jasmine, sambac, and base notes of amber and musk. Now this one, I'm going to be giving away this travel probably to my cousin's daughter, because she loves Ariana Grande fragrances. This is a nice, pleasant, kind of sweet cherry fragrance. The cherry in here is a little bit more synthetic. I don't like using the word synthetic, but there's nothing wrong with that. Synthetic is pretty much what fragrance is. I gotta remember that it's not chemically. Like, I don't like when something smells too chemical or too fake. This doesn't smell chemically, but this is more of a kind of sweet, youthful, slightly synthetic cherry scent. And it's gonna be something nice, I think, for the younger crowd, because to me, this deviates from her Cloud and her REM fragrances. I feel like Ariana Grande's fragrances kind of grew up with her. She had her first set of Ari fragrances in that round bottle. And then as she got a little older, we got the Ariana Grande Cloud, and that one kind of was like the celebrity fragrance to get. And then now I feel like her new, at least the Pink Woods from her Love Notes collection, that one's a little bit more elevated, a little bit more niche smelling. This one to me goes back to her Ariana Grande fragrances. When I sprayed this, I thought of her Sweet and her Ari fragrance together. So youthful, fun, nothing wrong with this. I just have too much of this, it's redundant. So again, that's Ariana Grande's Cherry Eclipse. Next we have Ariana Grande's Pink Woods from her Love Notes collection. So this has top notes of bergamot, lotus, tea, vetiver, jasmine, cashmere wood, cotton candy, and tonka. So I do get kind of that citrusy opening and a little bit of a dewiness that I get from Lotus. I remember when I was talking about this being released, someone had mentioned that this was reminiscent or smelled a lot like Selena Gomez's Fine Comfort, which I didn't include in this video because I believe this is limited edition. You can get the lotion and the body Hermes, but I believe that the actual travel was limited edition. So these two were being compared to each other, and while these two definitely fall in a similar family, I think Fine Comfort smells very close to Byredo's Bal d'Afrique, which is another fragrance that people compare to this one. Pink Woods has a slight sweetness that you get from the cotton candy. It doesn't smell like cotton candy, but it gives me the fuzzy feeling of cotton candy. It's got that cashmere wood. It feels more fuzzy, more like a cashmere sweater, a little bit more feminine leaning than Bal d'Afrique. I find that one to be very unisex. This could easily be a flanker. This is clean, like clean clothes, like after the dryer, not like dryer sheets or detergent, but after the drying process. When you put on something warm straight out of the dryer and you kind of smell it, that's what this is. I find this one to be more, because the name of Selena Gomez's is Find Comfort. I find Ariana Grande's Pink Woods to be more comforting, but there's something about this scent in the dry down that I'm not crazy about. So I actually prefer Selena Gomez, but when I think of a nice, comforting kind of cashmere sweater or a hug, this one definitely, I get that more. But I prefer the scent of Find Comfort in the dry down more. So I'll finish this travel with no problem. Nothing I'll be getting a larger bottle of, but this is a nice kind of elevated fragrance. Definitely more grown up than some of her other fragrances. Okay, then next we have Clean Reserve's Whipped Cherry. And this scent reminds me of Ariana Grande's Cloud. This has top notes of cherry, coconut water, pineapple, middle notes of almond blossom, praline, and mimosa, and base notes of whipped cream, vanilla, and cedar. I don't necessarily get a pineapple note, which now they list. They didn't list it before. I do get a kind of sweet cherry in the opening, and then that quickly falls off, and I get a fruitiness that's probably coming from the pineapple, but I just have other pineapple scents where I get a juicy pineapple, and I don't get that in here. I get more of a fruity sweetness. Like there's definitely another fruit in here, not just the cherry, but I can't pick it out. It's very blended and very whipped. This is a very whipped cream kind of cherry in the opening, and then settles to a sweet, soft kind of fruity Ariana Grande's Cloud. I would say it's what I wanted Pink to be, because Pink to me was a very watered down version, and this one's a little bit more fruity, a little bit more sweet. So if you're looking for a scent on the cleaner side, I would say check this out as well. I think it's blended very nicely. It's a nice kind of intimate, clean skin scent. I'm just over this DNA. So again, that's Clean Reserve's Whipped Cherry. Next we have Marc Jacobs Perfect Elixir. Now this is one that was actually going to be higher up on the ones I disliked, but I revisited it the other day. So all of these fragrances I got right before Christmas, like around the holidays. I love the opening of a lot of these. This one especially. I got that juicy plum and honey right away. But the honey isn't too like animalic or too sickly or sticky sweet. It's a very beautiful ambery honey sweetness. And then as it dries down, it starts to blend, and then you get the rhubarb, so you start to get something a little mouth-watering and tangy. So I'm getting that slight perfect DNA, but it's different. This is definitely a flanker, but very different. For me, what kills this fragrance is in the deep dry down. I'm not sure if it's the patchouli that's in here, because it's not necessarily like that dirty, earthy patchouli. But there is something that's coming off dusty in the deep dry down. So this fragrance has plum, honey, rhubarb, amber, orange blossom, vanilla, resins, and patchouli. And sometimes resins can bother me, but there's just something in the deep dry down of this fragrance that is coming off extremely dusty. That's what bothers me in this fragrance. So when I wore this just recently, after having it sit for a couple of months, I started to like it, and the dustiness wasn't as strong, but it was still there. It's not one I would get a larger bottle of, because it's got to tick a lot of boxes, but it is one that I might finish the travel, because now that I'm getting some of the other notes and it's starting to blend a little bit better. When I wore it just recently, I was like, I kind of like it. So sometimes you do need to let a fragrance sit. So I want to revisit this one again. All right, next we have Barenia by Hermes. This has top notes of miracle berry, bergamot, middle notes of white ginger lily, and base notes of patchouli, akigala wood, and oak. This doesn't come off oody or like oud to my nose. This comes off like leather. This smells like a very unique, expensive unisex fragrance You spray it on, and then you have on that Hermes leather bracelet, which is what the bottle is designed after. This scent smells very elevated, very niche to my nose. If you're tired of all the other designer fragrances, I would say check out this scent, but just know it's not going to be for everyone. This is one I have to actually layer with because it's a little too much. I like it in the opening, but then after that 3-4 hour mark, it just becomes a little too much for me. This also has amazing staying power. I've worn this on 3 different occasions. Didn't spray heavy because it's pretty loud right out of the bottle. And you can see that I wore most of these 3 times and the dent is just not as strong because it is pretty loud coming straight out of the bottle. I layered this with Juliet Has a Gun Magnolia Bliss, and that just added something that I needed, maybe a fruitiness. So I could see myself finishing this layering with it, but this isn't one I would get a larger bottle because this isn't me. But I could totally see a certain kind of woman wearing it. When you think of an androgynous kind of beautiful woman with a beautiful jawline, she's got some masculine edge to her. That is this scent. This smells expensive. It smells like you're walking into what I imagine walking into an Hermes store, because I've never walked into one. This to me is if you walk into an Hermes store with all the beautiful leather handbags, even though they don't list leather. I get leather. You guys know I like to give you what my nose picks up. This scent smells more like leather than the next fragrance I'm going to talk about, which is considered a leather fragrance. So very unique, not my kind of fragrance. One I'll play with, I'll layer with, and one that I'll report back on. And again, that's Barenia by Hermes. All right, next we have Tory Burch Sublime, and this is considered like a leather fragrance. This has top notes of Italian mandarin, ivy, and peach, middle notes of magnolia, rose, and base notes of vetiver, leather, and patchouli. Now, one thing I will say, the patchouli in both Sublime and in Barenia is what I remember patchouli smelling like back in the day. A lot of patchouli fragrances now, to my nose, smell very earthy and, like my friend likes to say, potted soil. It has this kind of, like, it's almost a little too earthy and potted soil. This is what I remember. This and Barenia is what I remember patchouli smelling like. It still smells earthy, but more blended. So I do enjoy this one as well, but in the dry down, this one gets a little dusty, kind of like Marc Jacobs Perfect Elixir. There's something in here that gets a little dusty on my skin. This is another one that's sophisticated. It smells like an expensive, like walking into an expensive like Tory Burch store. But this one I would say is a little more nondescript than Barenia. I would say Hermes's fragrance is more unique. And again, I get more of a leather in that one. This one opens up very bright from like the citrus note, and then I start to get more of the leathery, I would say I get more leathery nuances in this one, and I get a more woodiness in the base. Whereas, again, I don't know if it's the oud that's in here, but this one comes off more leather to my nose. This one's more fresh, more clean. This one's gonna be more of an easy wear. This one, it's something new to me, but yet something old. This smells like fragrances that I used to smell in the department stores back in the day, like the 2010s maybe, around that time. But since I haven't smelled fragrances like that in some time, this is smelling a little new but familiar. So while it's different, it's not. But this is another one that I would say I'm not gonna have a problem getting through this travel. I find the leathery and the woody notes to be more likable in this one, and to be just a little bit more unique and realistic in Hermes. All right, then next we have Golden Rule by Phlur. So now we're getting into my top 3. These are fragrances that I would possibly get larger bottles of. This has top notes of pear, mandarin, pink pepper, middle notes of orange flower water, jasmine, coconut milk, and base notes of vanilla, benzoin, and sandalwood. Now this one is redundant. People are comparing this one to YSL's Libre and Prada Paradox. I would say the orange blossom in here is reminiscent of Libre, but this is very much, yeah, a summery version of Prada Paradox. This has the same sweetness as Prada Paradox, but with a coconut kind of tropical twist. but it's very soft. So this one you can also wear year round because the coconut in here is very light. This one's beautiful. This is one that I would possibly get because even though it's redundant, it's clean. So I like that. I also like that while it's reminiscent of Prada Paradox, it's not a dupe. You get the coconut, you get this kind of slight tropical feeling from this one. And it's got like more of a sandalwood base. I don't think there's sandalwood in Prada Paradox. You really get the sandalwood in here. So this is one that I would possibly get a larger bottle of once I decluttered fragrances in my collection. But if you already own Prada Paradox, again, this isn't a dupe, but if you don't want too much of that fragrance, know that this is similar. Also, if you have YSL Leap, you just might not want a lot of the same, and this falls in a similar scent family. So again, that's Golden Rule by Phlur. All right, the last two I'm kind of gonna talk about hand in hand because I was going back and forth which one was going to be in my #1 spot, and they're kind of both my #1 spots for very different reasons. They don't smell the same. So we'll go over Prada Infusion the Rhubarb first. This scent wise is my #1, but again, I'm just trying to get more clean fragrances in my collection, so I might end up getting a large bottle of Snif, so that's why that one's going to be in my #1 spot. But Prada Infusion the Rhubarb, this was a love at first sniff. If you want to smell clean and fresh and soapy, this is a beautiful scent. Now, this does smell like a very realistic tart rhubarb scent. This has top notes of green mandarin, middle notes of rhubarb, base notes of aldehyde, citrus, musk, and white musk. And that is exactly what you get. You get a very green, very realistic, soapy, aldehydic, tart rhubarb scent. And even though it's watery and light and clean and fresh, it's very strong. This is very sharp in the opening. I remember I sprayed it on my hand and I'm like, whoa, this is loud. So I took a shower, I sprayed it lightly. It was very loud and kind of sharp in the opening. Then I did my nightly routine and then it started to die down a little bit. So I sprayed a little bit more, went to bed, and when I woke up, I just smelled this clean, soapy, green, slightly tart scent the next day. This scent is so beautiful, and the longevity and performance on this is loud but without being beastly. Like, it envelops you when you first spray it and you think it's going to be a little too much, but then it dies down, but it very much leaves a really nice scent bubble and one that you could smell. So I would say it projects pretty decent. It's just not going to enter a room before you do. Gorgeous scent. You have to enjoy soapy fragrances to enjoy this one. This isn't going to be for everyone either, but this is for me. This is my kind of fragrance. What I like about this one is it's fresh, and then it's got that kind of mouth-watering but more on a sour side rhubarb. I love the rhubarb note, and it's done really well in here. Next we have Rose Era by Snif, and now that I'm looking at the notes, for some reason I thought this one had rhubarb because there is something a little tart in here, but maybe that's coming from the strawberry. This has notes of rose, strawberry, soap, pear, dewdrop, ambrette, woody notes, saffron, moss, and archinox. This is going to be your fresh fragrance, but more, it's less aldehydic and more like clean soap. And then the fruitiness kind of balances this scent out. There is a dewiness to this fragrance. This one's more fruity where your mouth waters from the juiciness. It's got this juicy strawberry and pear, but again, I can't pick up a strawberry or pear. It's just a juicy fruit. You could definitely pick up the rhubarb in this one. I would say scent-wise, Infusion the Rhubarb by Prada is my favorite, but as a whole, like, this is my kind of fragrance. It's clean, it's fruity, it's phthalate free. So that's why this one made it into the #1 spot. Just know that if this one was clean, this would have made it to the #1 spot. Now I do have a clean rhubarb fragrance coming from Noteworthy, so I'll have to report back on that one because I haven't smelled anything like Prada Infusion and I really want this fragrance. But again, I don't want a large bottle. I think this travel alone is gonna last me because again, the performance on this one's really great. So yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on new fragrances. Again, my top 3 are Phlur's Golden Rule, Prada Infusion the Rhubarb, and Rose Era by Snif. I would say 2 that I wouldn't get a large bottle of, but I would suggest to check out because they're a little different than what's out there right now is Tory Burch Sublime. But I will say this one, if you've been around fragrances for a little while, you might find this reminiscent from something of your past. If you want something unique, check out Barenia, but please try before you buy. This is not a safe blind buy. And then these 5 here are just a little either redundant scrubbers or nothing that wowed me. But let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on these fragrances? But that will do it for today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.